Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Nagarjara. I respect the fact that this is the Committee of Jurisdiction that does oversee the SEC, and that the nuances of what should or should not be made available under FOIA to a great extent falls within this committee. Chairman Towns and I are here because we represent the committee that is really about transparency. We will always be the committee that probably starts off assuming that everything should be available unless otherwise justified. Chairman Towns's bill and what one might call a companion or similar bill, 5924, which I also authored, really try to unring the bell. That's our position. Our position is you start over, you essentially undo what happened in the Dodd bill, and then you thoughtfully and carefully weigh what Chairman Cox brought, Chairman Shapiro is bringing, and don't give them what they ask for, what they want, give them what they need. The decision of what they actually need in the long run will be yours. But let's assume the following. Every bureaucrat, no matter how well intended, always wants to err on the side of caution and less. Well, the public believes that they should err on the side of more. Now, as I look down at Mike Oxley above the chairman, I remember that, in fact, Sarbanes-Oxley passed under many of your watches. I'm perhaps the only member of Congress serving on a public board both before and after that, taking a company public and watching as we went through the SEC process. The Security Exchange Commission is not an enforcement agency first. It is not the FBI. It does not deal in vast secrets. It is, in fact, an agency that exists for no other reason primarily than to ensure transparency of the information and honesty of the information that public companies put out there in order that there may be public confidence, trust, and thus the free flow of funds to investments. The SEC exists in no small way in order to create transparency and honesty. Now, of course, they have an enforcement responsibility, and often they ask for additional information and information that should not be made public. But make no mistake, the SEC is about asking for proprietary information to be made public as a part of what they do. We all know that you can find out a great deal about a company, far more about a public company than you can a privately held company as a result of their wanting to be before us. As Congressman Campbell said, it is impossible for us to understand how criminal enterprises such as Bernie Madoffs can in fact continue to enjoy some level of protection from scrutiny by the public. So, Mr. Chairman, we are coming before you here today to a great extent not to debate whether suggestions made by Mr. Cox or now Chairwoman Shapiro are in fact appropriate. That's your decision to be made in good time. But we are asking you to consider legislation that would effectively unring the bell, allow that process to go forward without prejudice based on what was put in the bill that we believe was overly broad. I might point out to the committee, not that you wouldn't already know it, but perhaps for the public, that the SEC, prior to this 929I, only granted 13% of FOIA requests, and as far as we can tell, was only overturned when they denied once. So this is an agency that knows how to say no, has the power to say no, and says no most of the time. I think that's one of the reasons that in my letter to Chairwoman Shapiro, which I would ask unanimous consent be placed in the record,
without objection,
we pointed out some of the details of that history. Not to say by any means that her guidelines were inappropriate and weren't a good step, but that in fact, if we unrang the bell here today, they still only would grant about 13% of FOIA. They would fully protect companies' secrets. And if they can't, I certainly want to make sure that this committee, in its due time, ensure that we do provide them the tools they need. I might note that there is a legitimate reason to say that no one should ever be able to use the Security Exchange Commission to backdoor their way into information that would not otherwise be available through FOIA. That's a good point and a good starting point. So as we take this step forward, I would hope that the members of the committee who have the absolute jurisdiction would start over to the extent possible, give us a quick remedy from an overly broad prohibition on FOIA, and then appropriately listen to Chairman Cox and Chairman Shapiro in the future. And thank you for the extra few seconds. I yield back.